Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Top of the Hops. I'm your host, Michael Riker, and I'm so excited to have my guest on today. Her name is Sadaf Asmalova. She owns the store called Beer Town, which is my favorite beer store, not only in New York, but in the entire tri-state area. We'll get into that. I definitely want to talk some beer with you. Sadaf, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So I've told this story before. I've had it's different levels of beer in my life that I started. So I started very late in life. I started when I was 40 getting into beer.
Okay.
So I started with the small ones. I didn't like Bud. I didn't like Coors Light. But then I started drinking some Sam Adams and, getting to things here and there. And then I went to craft beers and stuff like that. And then some more German beers. But I gotta admit, once I discovered your store, you have opened me up to so many different types of beer that I love it, and I just love your store, and I'm so excited to have
Oh,
you on today. Appreciate it.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. I love hearing, I love reading our Google reviews because like people are
Yes.
so thorough and it's just sometimes like I end up crying reading them just because it's so sweet hearing people's experiences and such a positive experience there. And like you said, I think it's really cool to hear that a lot of people having a store like that in the neighborhood that we're a part of has opened their doors into this like craft beer world.
Yes.
It's great. And it's great that we're able to offer those beers and we get such a great response. So we're able to kind of keep it going and bring all these cool things in. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to get into your story, but before we do that, what are you drinking today? Let me see what you're doing.
So so I did, top five. So I went with my top five, but the very first, and of course I had like a strategy to my order in
Of
this,
course, yeah.
So I'm starting off with an Oktoberfest. It's from a local brewery. They do fantastic beer. I often have their stuff at the shop. Threes Brewery.
Oh, okay. I love threes. Yeah. Okay. I've
Yeah,
not had that one. Okay.
that's called Hereafter. It's a Marson style Oktoberfest. So very traditional. Supposed to have a nice like malty base. They are using like German hops and German malt. So you get a nice like cracker biscuit kind of malty background,
Okay.
as
Yes.
well as this caramelized malt. It's beautiful. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna pour it out just so we can
Oh,
like
let me
see the
see. Yeah.
color.
Cool. Very nice.
Yeah. In our little beer town
Oh, I have one of
taster.
those.
I know you do.
Oh,
That's
that's awesome.
awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. I've just recently got into the Marsens and the German beers, and
Mhm.
I'm gravitating more towards those. Those are really good.
Yeah.
So tell me about that one. So is that compare that to some other German beers that you've had?
So I think with this one, it does stay really true to like a German Oktoberfest, like a Hofbrau Oktoberfest or like a Spaten Oktoberfest.
Okay.
They didn't. I find that some craft breweries, they will, overhop something like this because we are known to do that. So I like that they stay traditional. It's very straight. It's really smooth and easy. I think it's about a 5%. Can't be
Oh,
anything.
that
Yeah,
is
five and
yeah.
five and a half. Some of the Oktoberfest can get up to 7, but traditionally they're supposed to be a really kind of malt rich but smooth and easy beer.
Okay.
Um, but I admire it because it's traditional. And as
Right.
much as I loved craft breweries and people getting really funky, and at the shop we get some really weird
Oh
beers.
yeah.
Yeah. Before at work, before I got home, we were trying something called El Frutero, which is a sour beer with mango, lime,
Oh, I'm so into
and
sours.
chili peppers.
Oh,
And
oh
that
no, you know
is,
what? I had that one. I bought
did
that
you?
one. I had it a couple weeks ago. I liked it. It
With
was
like the
different.
frog on it that looks like he's on
Yes,
acid. He's like holding the
yes, yes. We had that one last week, and
It's
you're right. The chili pepper, especially on the back, was
hmm
very interesting.
it's very, I love that if a beer is gonna say like if it's gonna list an ingredient, it should really be in there,
Yeah,
And
agreed.
it
Yeah,
wasn't aggressive, but it was like lacing your throat with every sip, that chili pepper. It was a really funky beer. Yeah, I tried it with a couple of my coworkers before I got home. Yeah.
that's amazing. Yeah, like you said, your store has so many great different types of beer.
Mm,
So I got the one I'm drinking is actually from your store, and it's the Doc's Pumpkin Cider.
love it.
So I don't have a
Love it.
glass, unfortunately, so I'm just gonna drink out of the can.
That's right.
So,
Drink it right out of the can. Yeah.
so I've never had a pumpkin cider before, and I like ciders, but I've never had a pumpkin one before. I just tasted before we got on the air today, and it does have that almost that apple-ish pumpkin pie type cider to
Mm,
it. It's a little
I love
sweet,
it.
but not too sweet. It's really good.
I was gonna
Um,
ask, I haven't gotten to that one, and I mean, I feel like cider traditionally is meant to be sweet, right? There
yeah,
are variations.
it's
There's dry
dry though.
cider,
Yeah,
right?
it's a
There's dries and there's semi-sweets and there's all these awesome variations. But generally, I think, especially when I hear like pumpkin cider, I think like dessert, you know?
yes, very much so. Yeah, and
Yeah,
then I want to get
nice.
into that with some of the beers because some of these pumpkin beers can taste like a pumpkin pie, and then you have some that are more like a pumpkin spice
Mm-hmm.
than more of dessert beer. So
Agree.
this is really good, by the way, and it's very
Nice.
dry. And the apple with the pumpkin just
Does it
complements
go
itself.
well?
Yeah, it goes
Nice.
really well together. So that's great.
I
Um,
love it. I love it.
yeah.
I also have a fun pumpkin. Well, it's not a pumpkin cider. It's a cider donut cider. And
I'm
I
jealous.
mean, I pretty much only go apple picking with my daughter so I can like buy all the desserts at the stand.
I know, it's funny because it's not my top five, but we'll get to it later. But
Yeah.
there was one that Evil Twin put out, and it was, I think,
Hmm.
an apple cider donut one that
I
they
think I
had.
remember.
Yeah, and you could actually taste the powdered sugar in that beer. I don't know how they did it that way. Maybe I'm not. I don't know anything
They're
about that.
magicians. The
They
evil
are.
twin brewers
Yes,
are magicians.
they
I don't
are.
know what they we got a beer today that's like a freezer Sunday Rocky Road, and I haven't tried it. We just got it today,
Oh,
but they make the funkiest beers and they nail it.
they
They nail
do.
it.
They do.
Yeah.
And I'm not a stout fan whatsoever. I'm not a big
Okay.
coffee guy, but some of their stouts, when you said it, the Rocky Road, they had a banana split one,
Mm-hmm.
which was really good. And you're right, they're on point when it comes to
On
their
point.
chocolate based stouts. You
I
feel like you're
agree.
drinking a dessert. It's crazy.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. Yeah.
So let's get into your store because like I said, I love your store so much. But how did you get into it? Like tell us the backstory. I know a little bit about it and I think it's great. So tell our listeners and viewers about your store.
So I it in my I also agree. I think it's a really great story. So I was in that, weird stage in my life where I just didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was in and out of college. And my dad, my Muslim Pakistani dad, he had left he was doing something else and he sort of wanted to get into like a more cash business and something kind of easy to get into. So he bought two beer distributors.
Wow. Okay.
And one of them is my current shop. It was definitely very different, very different. It was just like stacks of Corona and Coors Light. It catered to the community and what they wanted. It was an established business there already. I remember working for him one summer, and I really wasn't into beer at that point. I was just kind of drinking Heinekens or whatever was available at that time. But I got very curious after like talking to some customers. They would have very specific requests. I
Mm,
remember he had like a little bit of like a German selection, a Belgian selection. It was mostly imports at that time. This is like 2006.
okay.
So it was like the craft scene had just really kind of like taken, like, just started really. So especially like on the East Coast, we didn't really have a lot going on. So I remember like talking to customers and talking to the sales guys that would come in, and I would read like the catalogs and learn, start reading about beer. And long story short, I was an art major in school, and
Right.
beer to me is art. Like it's this I loved reading about these, like, it's carefully curated recipes, and people have like there's like Belgian breweries that have yeast strains that have been like there for generations,
Yeah.
and it's like this really beautiful, like artistic, scientific kind of method to beer. So I just fell in love with it like that. And I remember asking my dad, like, I'm like, oh, can I like start doing, oh my God, there's a cat.
Yeah. This is Atticus, everybody.
Sweet baby Atticus, so cute. I love cats. But I asked him, I'm like, Dad, do you think like I could like start doing some of like the buying? Like, just because I was always there and I was talking to people and I started taking like requests down and I once I started buying it and trying it, it just took off from there. And really where it started for me was like German beer,
Okay.
English and Scottish like pub ales. I
Interesting. Okay.
love Belgian ales. I like some of my favorites were like Quack and like triple caramel and I love like the Allagash triple which is like an award-winning beer even
Okay.
now. They just took like the gold at the Gamp award at the Gamp festival, yeah. But it's just a funny story. Like I always feel like I always say like beer found me. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was sort of there randomly and I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with it. Yeah.
You said he had a second store. Where was the second store?
The second store was in Franklin Square, Nassau County.
Okay.
So I grew up in Valley Stream in the South Shore of Nassau County. That was his first one, and then he got into the one in Ozone Park. And I remember like, I was just like kind of home a lot, and he was like, I got this store in Ozone Park. You want to come like help me out or something? And he's like, you're just sitting here, you're not doing anything, And I was like, all right, I was like, fine, no, I'll come help you. And I'm gonna be honest, like in the beginning, it just Valley Stream is not so far from Ozone Park, but it
No.
just felt like a completely different world. Like
And it is, Stop. It is.
it is. So, at first I was really kind of turned off in a way because I'm like, I don't know this community. I don't know these people. Everyone seems a little like hard. And
Yeah.
I will say that all of these experiences help me make the business I have today. From what kind of options I bring in to the customer service to how we display our beers to everything. I learned all throughout the experience that I had. I was with him for several years, and then it's been 8 years now for Beer Town.
Oh,
The store
wow.
was called something else under him. So Beer Town's now 8 years old, and I'm incredibly proud of it.
Yeah, and you should be.
I love what I do, and I love the people that I've met, and that's like the big thing for me. Yeah.
Right. That's awesome. It's funny you mentioned about and I wanted to ask you this about the craze of the craft beer because,
Mm.
like I said before, I didn't get into until 2012. So you're saying the craze starting before then? Because I feel like there's been this boom, or over the past few years, especially with breweries and
Yeah.
with craft beers. I mean, I'm seeing craft beers even at local shops like Stop and Shop over
Yeah.
here, and I'm seeing stuff from Barrier from over there. I'm seeing stuff from Omnigang.
Yeah.
And before Stop and Shop would only sell Sam Adams and stuff like that, but
True.
I'm seeing a lot more craft beers over there. So, but you're saying that boom started even way before then.
So I wouldn't call it a boom, but I feel like on the West Coast, it started like it was brewing up in the West Coast. So
Okay.
brands like Lagunitas, Sierra, um, there are like Green Flash and Alpine. Like some of
Yeah.
these brands, by the way, they were available in New York, but they no longer are just because of our boom. But I'll say like the last 10 years is the real craft beer boom,
Okay.
especially for the rest of the country, not just the West Coast, and I would say globally, right? I mean, now you'll see craft breweries in Germany, and they are so strict with their purity law and sort of
Mm.
like anti craft,
Right.
but in Italy there's craft breweries, in Germany there's craft breweries, all
Amazing.
over South America. But I will say yes, it's the last 10 years where there's been this really big boom of just craft beer everywhere and available to purchase everywhere and seen
Mm.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because my father-in-law, he's like, I never knew these beers could taste like this. It's like, you're getting all these, the mango and the
Yeah.
peach and the
Yeah.
marshmallow, and just like, yeah, it's different. It isn't like he's used to Budweiser and Corona,
Right.
and I hate to say it, but those is what turned me off to beer early on in my
Mm.
drinking stages because I didn't like Bud. I didn't like Coors.
Yeah.
So when not that I was much of a drinker anyway, but I was going more towards the hard liquor, whether it be vodka or gin or something like that. But like I
Right.
said, once I turned 40 and I started developing more of a taste of these craft beers, and now I don't drink anything else. Like I don't drink
That's cool.
vodka. I don't drink anything else but
Oh
beer.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
it.
beer.
That's it. That's all I drank because I
Nice.
I feel like if I go to vodka, it's like all right, I need that beer. I still need that beer taste. I still need it. So
That's,
it's like I'm addicted.
it's really cool. It's really cool. I love what you said about your father-in-law, right? That you said that you
Yes, yeah.
so, I thoroughly, like, really, really enjoy having people come to the shop, and especially like, yeah, when they're sort of a middle age to older, like older than like 55, see, and they're like, what is this? And when I get them to try something, because there's a lot of hesitation. There's a lot of hesitation, and they're sort of like, because it's a group of people that they're used to what they know, they're happy with that, they
Yep.
don't like change. But I find it really like rewarding when I can introduce a beer to someone that doesn't have to be like weird, but it's just something different, and it can open up their eyes to see like beer, just it doesn't have to just be like an adjunct lager, like it doesn't have to be just a
Right.
Coors or a Bud. There's great beer out there that doesn't have to be weird. But I enjoy that journey for people. I have this one woman, I love to talk about her because she was like a Michelob Ultra drinker. And she was always like, she was on the phone, she would come in and she would just get it. It was like she would beeline to the Michelob, she put it on the counter, and that was the end of it, right? But I remember like one time, like she took her earpiece off and she was like, "What is this?" She's like, what are you talking about? Like, what is this stuff? And I'm
Right.
like,
Yeah.
but I just love that I get the opportunity to talk to people and open them up to this big world of beer, and I like to walk them through that. If they're used to, like, I'll ask, like, what do you usually drink? And if they say like a Stella, Heineken, I know that they like a lager, they like something crispy, they like
Hmm.
something light, they kind of want to crush a few. So I know how to guide them. I would not hand an IPA or a sour to
Yeah.
somebody like that,
Right. Yeah. You want to
Yeah.
hand the frog on the can to someone.
I will not give them an El Frutero.
It's funny because I remember a couple of years ago when I was in your store, there was a older gentleman that came in all the way from Jersey just
Okay.
for this beer. It was an Italian beer. I'm not sure which one and he said, you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah, he comes in from Jersey. He said, "This is the only store that carries this beer."
Oh my God. I love that you were there for that. And I
Yeah.
know his name. I just don't want to say it right now, but I know his name. He still does it. And it's Farst. Farst is an Italian beer. He gets the Sixtus, which is like a Doppelbock.
Okay, I'm not.
And
See, now I'm gonna have to try this. Now I'm glad you said the name.
it's one of those things I have to like special order for him. And he says, yeah, that he goes, and still and he's such a great guy. Like he'll call me before, he'll give me like a month in advance. And then he's like, and then he'll order it when he has to like drop somebody to JFK or something.
Oh, that's funny. That is
Or he has to like
hilarious.
come pick up something. So he'll like kind of round up his New York visit and come and collect his beer as well.
That's
But I love
amazing.
that you got to see that. There are some people, again, with the choice, with the options that we have at the shop, I love that it draws all types of beer drinkers to us. And I love that I can, a lot of people that were like stationed in Germany during the war, or like,
Hmm.
when they were in the military, they come in and they're like, "Oh, do you have any German beer?" And I show them my section. They're like, "Wow!" And then they're like, "I used to drink this when I was in Germany." I
That's
love,
tremendous.
right? Like I
Yeah,
love it to be able to bring somebody that, like, bring that moment back to somebody is such a beautiful thing to witness.
it is.
And then some people, like, it's like a taste of home. I have a lot of like Latin customers, and we have quite a selection of like we have Ecuadorian beer and Peruvian beer. So they love it. They'll call and they'll be like, "Do you have this beer?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I have it." They're like, "You have it?" Like, but
That's
I love
great.
it. A taste of home is just a really touching experience to bring through beer to
Yeah.
somebody.
How do you keep up with like the latest trends in beer? Like what do you go out and search certain things? Do you read certain things? How do you keep up with like the latest trends?
That's a really good question. So I'm gonna say that so every week, I mean, I work with every distributor that sells beer in New York, from Russian to Polish to every craft distributor, right? What they do is they send us these like inventory emails, and I get to kind of scope through, like, I'm talking hundreds, thousands of beer options. And what I'll notice sometimes is that sometimes just through reading and kind of keeping up with it, like you said, like kind of going out, and I read I get different emails and articles. They're different like sources that
Okay.
kind of are focused around beer and beer trends and whatnot. So sometimes I'll catch something like that. But most of the time, I notice it when I go through my inventory report, like when I see those inventory emails,
Mm,
because in those emails, I'll notice the trend. All of a sudden, everyone's doing like a milkshake IPA. And I'm like, oh,
yeah.
this is coming back. I'm like, I see Westbrook doing it. I see Evil Twin doing it. I see, a couple other breweries doing it. So I'm like, oh, this is trending. Sometimes I'll also notice that like a certain kind of hop is trending, or
Oh,
like
okay.
cryo hops are trending, because I'll
Interesting.
notice it more and more in the labels. They'll say that they're using cryo hops. And I think it's, for me, because of my shop, and because I'm buying for my shop, I notice it like that the most, and I kind of will pick up on the trend like that. There was something recently in cider, for example, like a customer came in, he was asking for imperial ciders, which are high, usually about like an 8% or higher.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
then yeah, which is a little different for cider, not traditionally that high in alcohol.
Right.
Then I noticed that like my sales guys would come in, they're like, oh, Angry Orchard just did a new imperial cider. And then the guy from Cider Boys, he goes, oh, Cider Boys is doing a new imperial cider. And then Austin Ale, like Austin East Ciders is also doing imperials. So right now I feel like, just based on those conversations and what's available, I'm like, oh, this is kind of trending right now. These like high ABV ciders.
Also, that's the latest trend right now to you right now is what you're
One of
seeing.
the one of them, this summer was an interesting one, which there's some trends, Michael, I can never, like, who can call it, like the hard seltzer game. Who would have thought that
I
would be a
know,
thing?
I know. I tried a couple and I'm like, okay, and then I'm ready to move on.
Yeah, like they're okay.
Mhm.
I can drink it, but they're not satisfying to me.
That's the
It's
perfect word there, Sadaf,
right.
because it's not satisfying. I feel like there should be more to it.
I agree. And I feel like beer tells a story, and hard seltzer doesn't quite have a story.
No,
So
I don't. Listen, anything if that's being sold in CVS, I'm not going to be able to drink it. So,
yeah. But yeah, there's some trends and things I would have never called, but I do see yeah, like, and I see some trends kind of go and come back. I
Hmm.
don't know if you ever got into it, but there was a sort of a very short trend of brute IPAs,
Okay,
which were
no,
like drier. They were like drier
I'm like a
IPAs.
champagne type, like brute, like the
Kind
champagne.
of, kind of. They were
Okay,
like, so think of like the body of an IPA as it normally is, but it was like lighter, airier, and drier.
okay.
And I saw it kind of like boom, like everybody was doing a brute IPA, and then like everybody stopped. It was just
And
like,
yeah, and that's like, I was in your store, a little while ago. We talked about the hard root beers, and
yes,
that was a trend that was happening a lot too, with like, the Mike's, not the hard lemonade, but the hard root beer, the hard orange cream
yes,
sodas, and
yep,
all that.
yep, yep,
And
yep.
I was seeing them everywhere. And then again, credit to your store. You were the only store I called that had it, the
That
hard
had
root
it.
beer.
That's
So,
crazy. That's
if
crazy.
someone wanted it, I'm like, really? Am we going back to this
Yeah,
again?
yeah,
So, but you guys had it, so it's funny how that was a real big boom for
I
like
agree.
very short period of time, but now it's like now nobody carries it, not even like in Stop and Shops anymore.
That's crazy. I still carry the not your father's root beer.
I know I just finished my last one, so I didn't get rid of
There
it.
you go.
So
And it's one of those things where like yeah, like I try to, just because there are still people that, like you said, like they're looking for that, and it's not really readily available anymore. So
right,
again, I love to, as long as it gets proper rotation and I can keep it fresh, I will stock it. Yeah.
interesting. So you
Yeah.
mentioned before that you were getting into some of the German beers, some of the English beers. Was there one beer in particular that stood out to you in your early days with Beer Town?
Uh yes. I so one of the ones that I'll never forget is it's a Belgian beer, Rodenbach.
Okay.
Rodenbach is the name. So we
Do you
don't
have this
really
at
carry
at
it.
your store now or no?
So I was like, I had the Grand Cru from them, which is just sort of like a blend of their barrels, but they made like it was like a cherry fermented, cherry
Ooh,
based like Belgian ale.
interesting.
And why it stands out is that I remember when I was like, Dad, I'm gonna open this, I'm gonna try
Yeah.
it. And it was just like so weird. And it was almost like what I've learned now is like a lambic, which is like it's a fruit derived, fruit fermented ale. But it always stays in my memory because I remember like I'm gonna be honest, the first time I tried it, I was like, ew, what is this?
Right.
And but later on down the line, like when I revisit, I'm like, this is such an exquisite beer. And I fell in love with that style, those lambics, and I wanted something more traditional. And but that is a very memorable beer for me.
Okay.
And then I'll say, I think, yeah, like just Belgians. I think I was really into Belgians at first. I loved like Belgian triples. Have you had any of those?
I
Like
have not, so I would love to try some.
oh, I
Yeah.
will, I'm gonna show you some when you stop by next time.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
There's they're kind of golden in the color, really easy to drink, nice, beautiful, like white foamy head, really kind of like a fruity kind of aroma coming out of it. But they're not using any fruit, they're not using any weird like additives. That essence is coming from the yeast. And that is what really impresses me in Belgian beer. Like it's the yeast is the most important part. And
Right.
like I said, some of them are like it's like a family heirloom. It's like
Yeah.
passed through generations. Like a Belgian triple is always around like, it's usually around like an 8%. So I love the idea of having this beautiful golden beer, fluffy and light. And I was like, after two beers, I'm like, ew.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like that anyway. Even if it's like 2% beers, I'm like that. I'm a lightweight when it comes to percentages of beers.
Oh
Um,
my God, I love it. I love
so
it.
when people think about beer, unfortunately, they think about it's a man-based world.
Mm.
So yeah. So talk about some of the challenges you have as a woman owning a beer business. Is this something that I'm sure there's a lot of stuff you've gone through. Talk about some of the pratfalls you've gone through.
I'm There's been some pretty gritty stuff. I'm gonna be honest.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Especially, I'm a 5 foot tall, like 100-pound woman. And I remember like some really negative things, like when I would start doing some of the buying and I really got into it. Like I love to talk to people about it. So I remember like I would be ringing somebody up and I'd be like, oh wow, this is such a great choice. And I would start like like storytelling about the beer. And like the guy behind this person would be sort of irritated, annoyed, and right, like just burst right out and be like, what do you know? What do you know about beer? You're a girl. And I know it sounds crazy, but it happened many times at that same location that I now own.
It doesn't
And
surprise me. Yeah.
it just was like they were like, so it was, I don't know if they were put off, but like people were just like, you're lying. They were like, you're making it up to sell me something. And
Or
it broke my
you're
heart.
just a cashier. What do you know?
Yeah,
Right. Not.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And they were like, what do you know? And like that like aggressive kind of like, what do you know? And like you don't know what you're talking about. It was really like heartbreaking because I fell in love with something and so with so much joy, wanted to talk about it. And I will say with all, with those kind of people, at the same time, there were many, many people that enjoyed the conversation, encouraged the conversation, but it was a lot of that. And I don't know, sometimes I think I'm like, was it the demographic in where like the shop where like
Yeah.
where I was working, or was it just that they were like, she's such a little girl, like, a lot of times they were like, you don't even drink this, you don't look like you drink beer. And I'm like, what is this like
I
stereotype?
know. I know. It's
What
crazy.
is that?
Did you find that coming more from the customers? Like how was it about dealing with like your competitors? Like did you find that as well, or that was different?
So that's an interesting one. I as far as like competitors,
Maybe not
I
competitors,
think
maybe you contemporaries, like people that are in the business just like you.
people in the business, I will say, Michael, even till this day. So just to give you a little insight, the type of shop I have, it's a wholesale slash retail shop.
Mm.
Okay. There are many people that own these kind of licenses, but they have big operations that do mostly wholesale and they're big warehouses of beer. And honestly, they're owned by men. Most of them are owned by men.
Yes. Mhm.
I am the probably, I think I met one other female owner of this kind of business, but in our like South Queens area, I am the only female owner of a business like this. And when our distributors get together for like they do like a dinner for all of the home D is what they'll call this kind of business, just as
Okay.
a general term. So they'll be like, oh, we're doing home D night, and they get everybody together. I am the only female owner in the room, and it's it's great. It's great
Yeah.
and it's empowering in one way, but sometimes I feel like they look at me like, oh, it's just like a little kid, especially because I'm not doing it the way they're doing it. I designed my shop to be this beer boutique, right? You guys come in and everything is set up and categorized and organized, and I pride myself in customer service. I have staff tastings and I have my staff
Hmm.
really get involved so they can, educate you and inform you about something. I will proudly say, like, I think I'm the only one who has a home D in all of South Queens that's operating like this.
Wow.
And I don't want to, I don't get anything negative from anybody, but I almost feel like I don't know. I don't know. I just don't I don't look, sound, or act like anybody else.
Yeah, no, but it's true because I'm not saying I've been to a ton of beer distributors or beer
Mhm.
stores, but there is nothing like yours. What makes yours unique is that, like you said, it's you described it perfectly, Sadaf. It's a beer boutique, and the fact that the way you have your store set up is just so perfect. Sometimes I go into beer distributors and like it's like all over the place. I'm like, where is it?
Right.
Like, where am I looking? Like, and
Right.
you don't get that personal connection with that person too as well. And not just you. You've ingrained that into your employees too. Like, whenever you're not there, they're just as
I love that.
friendly
Yeah.
and just as helpful as you are, and that's what makes your store so great.
I love that. I love hearing that. And I do really put a lot of effort behind that. I think it's important. I worked a lot of retail jobs. I love customer service. I love people. I'm obviously a big talker. So I like what you said about personal, like I tell my customers, I'm like, I want to build like an intimate experience to beer buying.
Hmm.
It's not just, even the guys that come in to get their 36 packs religiously, like every 3 days, I get to know them. I get to know their families. I ask them about things. I think that's really important in having like just a community business,
Yeah.
and building a sense of community through your business, being a part of it. Um, I like that we do it. Again, like I just take a lot of pride in that method, and I appreciate you saying that because I hope it works, and that's what keeps people coming back. And yeah, no.
That's great. You had something great over the summer where you had what was it called? It was the first ever Beer
The
Town pub.
first annual Beer Town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
talk about your experience with that because, and again, I'm not just saying this because you're here, and my wife can attest to this. That was the most fun I ever had at any
Oh,
beer party ever, and I've been to a bunch, like at breweries, big breweries, but
yeah.
yours for some reason was just out of this world. You had some great breweries, you had some great, food. The the oysters on the half shell also was a great touch there,
Oh yeah.
stuff. But talk about that time and I know there's gonna be a second one, hopefully. Uh,
Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about how that all came about.
Honestly, I had been thinking about doing something like that for many, many years. I'm just as I was building my reputation in the shop and you're getting to know everybody, I'm like, it would be great to put a beer event together that would be for this community. A community that, like we talked about earlier, that I sort of opened this door for, um, and I was incredibly proud of what we put together. My team and I did, everyone had such great ideas. We really tried to cover everything. I had so many amazing breweries, like you said, that really wanted to be a part of it and came through and gave me 100%. You
Hmm.
mentioned the food vendors. It was a lot of work, a lot of back and forth. And for me, that was very challenging just because being a mom, being a business owner, handling life, constant email back and forth. Can you come? Can you do this? What can you commit to? There was a lot of that, but um I agree. It honestly, it was like one of the best days of my life. Like
Oh, that's great to hear.
I cried, I laughed, I hugged everybody. Like I I was so happy. I was so happy. The reactions from everywhere was so positive. Nothing went wrong. Like I was so
Right.
happy. I was so, glad for that. But I do hope to do it again. It was something to really celebrate beer and our community. It was
Right.
something to bring people together the way I see people come together in my shop. I wanted my vendors, I wanted these breweries to see, a lot of them, like I'm the only person in that entire vicinity that carries their beer. So I'm
Right.
like, I want you to come see what we have here. I want you to come see the beer community that we've built here.
Hmm.
So I was incredibly proud to showcase that. And yeah, it was just like a celebration of just beer and our community and everybody coming together to enjoy this. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have any other ideas of what you can do with the store as far as like I know you do tastings, which I've
Mhm.
I've been there a bunch of times for those. Any other ideas you have in mind, or you don't want to let any secrets pass?
No, no, no. I would love to do more events. Like the minute we were done, like the day after we were done with the event, some of my team members were like, "Oh, we should do an Oktoberfest. We should do this.
Oh,
We should do." And I'm
right.
like, "It would be amazing." But there's a lot of logistics as far as like what kind of permits you need,
Mm.
and I'm very cautious with that because this business is my entire life.
Yeah, you're
So I
being
would do
smart
not.
about stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, I don't want to jeopardize anything. I want to make sure like everything's covered. So I do everything the right way.
Right.
So but I think, especially with that first event being such a success, it would be really cool to put together things like that. I also have an idea where I do hope to execute soon, which is to create this like sort of like a beer club, where the members get like first access to certain things. It could be like a monthly thing where we get together. It could be like a share. I haven't quite worked all of it out, but I'm like, I think
I'm
that would be
in.
fun. Yeah.
I'm
I
in.
think that would be fun. Yeah.
I think it's a
A
great
lot of
idea.
women, yeah, a lot of women tell me too, that they, which is another thing, like you mentioned about this very male dominated industry. I love when a woman comes in and she knows her stuff and we're like going
Yeah.
back and forth about all these great things. And I'm like, it'd be really cool to get like, all these women together that love beer and kind of
Right.
encourage this. Yeah. Um, I think that would be. I'm just into building a sense of community. And in Queens, New York, that's a little bit of a challenge,
Yeah, a little bit.
and it just because I mean we are the melting pot of the world, and it's even in an area like Ozone Park, Howard Beach, there is a strong sense of community, but I feel like sometimes it's a little like fake, like or like somebody or sometimes it could even be that it's the opposite, and people just because everybody is so different and they're coming from different places, there isn't this sense of togetherness.
Right.
I'm again like I love that at the counter I can see all different types of people with all different types of beer choices, like comment on each other, like, oh, is that good, what are you drinking over there, like
Right.
it's
And
it's
that's
cool
what
to
we
see that.
yeah, that's what we got at your party because it didn't matter what race you were, it didn't matter what political affiliation you had. We're all in this together, drinking beer, having a good time, and
Yeah,
that's what it
yeah,
was all about. And
yeah.
that's what's so great about your store. You do bring everybody together.
Oh,
So what makes a perfect beer for you? What's the perfect beer?
oh my god. This is a hard one.
well,
Okay.
let me ask you this way. You're an IPA, are you, what's the perfect beer as far as like, are you an IPA fan? Would you start with, I know you talk about Belgian and triples. Is that where you
Mhm.
go?
So I always say the hardest question for me to answer is like, what's your favorite beer? And
Yeah.
I almost like I get like, like a bad taste in my mouth. I'm like, I don't want to answer that,
Yeah. What's your favorite
But
child? Yeah.
oh God, yeah, it pretty
Right.
much is. But as far as a perfect beer, to me, it's balance.
Hmm.
So a lot of times I find that my go-to beer is a lager. I want something that has a hop and malt note. It's the body is light and bubbly, and I want it to be easy and smooth. Like to me, that is like an ideal beer because you can, it's something that it's approachable and it's just a crushable, enjoyable
Yeah.
experience,
Yeah.
but I will say I really do enjoy the experimental factor in beer now. Like I was mentioning with the El Fragero, like I just feel like um I enjoy when things are a little bit different, but I noticed that if it's something that like it's a like I just like what I gravitate towards. Like if I'm at the end of the week, like what do I want to like as my first beer? It's a
Right.
lager. It's a
Okay.
lager. And
Yeah.
I'm very impressed with the craft lagers. One of my absolute favorites is made by a local brewery. She's actually she just has she has a Kickstarter campaign started to start her own operation, like get a place here in Brooklyn and get going.
Okay.
Right now what she's doing is she's contract brewing with another brewery, so she pretty much is like making the beer in their facility, canning it, and then she kind of delivers it all over the city and sends it
Interesting.
out.
Okay.
The brewery's name is Back Home Beer. The woman in charge is Zara, and she has her family's from Iran, and I love me having Pakistani background and me constantly combating like, oh, aren't you Muslim? You're not supposed to be drinking beer. Like this supposed to thing like bothers the hell out of me.
Right.
I
Yeah.
did grow up in a Muslim household, but I choose not to identify with any religion. And even if you do it, people kind of practice the way they want.
Right. Absolutely.
Her beer is not Muslim or Muslim related. It's a beautiful story of how her grandfather was a brewer in Iran, and before the horrible regime that has taken over that country, people lived very freely. And I
Yeah.
love that her beer tells this story, and it's relative to me because of the region, and I love that there's representation from a Middle Eastern woman in
That's
the beer
tremendous.
industry.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. It
And
really
she
is.
makes
And
a fan. Yeah.
I can't wait. I can't wait to try it. That's amazing. So it's in Brooklyn, you said?
So yeah, so she's trying to open up a facility in Brooklyn. She's
Okay.
Brooklyn based right now. She has her Kickstarter campaign going on. Her lager, which is I believe it's Persian blue. She's using blue salt. She's using Persian salt in the lager, and it's just clean and crisp and just it's the most amazing
Oh,
lager.
that's awesome.
And
Yeah.
it's often my go-to choice.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. If you have a link to that Kickstarter, I'll put it up
Yeah,
in my
definitely.
description down below so people
I would
can
love
into it.
that. Yeah.
So that's awesome. It's funny because like I was looking today and we're getting back to women in this business. There are so many women doing this stuff with breweries and
Hmm.
beer. We talked about at the store about Talea,
Hmm.
which is me and my wife went there about a month ago, and it was such a great atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a woman type brewery, but I totally enjoyed myself. We did the Barbie flights and stuff.
Oh,
But
cute.
yeah, but
That's
it was
cute.
a lot of fun, and it's great seeing that because, and I was telling this on a previous episode. I feel like going to breweries and dealing with the party at your store is so much different than going to a bar. It's like it's such a much more positive experience going to these places than sitting
Nice.
at a bar than a brewery. Brewery is much more family oriented. You got the
I
dogs,
agree.
you got and
I agree.
it's so much more enjoyable.
I agree. I completely agree. I think that's why brewery tap rooms have had such a success.
Hmm.
We've seen so many amazing operations in New York City. I love that most of them, like they really support each other and encourage
Yeah,
each other and they collaborate with each other. They lift each other up so everyone does well. And I agree completely. There's a comfort in a brewery tap room.
there is.
Um, I remember bringing Sophie when she was really young to the Finback in Glendale.
I love
We would
Finback.
go there
Yeah.
often, and we play like Jenga, and Phil and I would be drinking beers, and we grab a little something to eat, and it's just such a warm, inviting, comforting environment.
Hmm.
Um, I agree. I agree completely. It's just a bar feels different. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely does. So give me some of your favorite breweries that are out there. You mentioned Finback, you mentioned Evil Twin before. Give me a
Mhm.
couple more that you would suggest to our viewers here.
So one of my absolute favorites is one that is in Warwick, New York. It's called Drown Lands,
Oh, okay.
which I
I like that
actually
beer.
have their pumpkin beer with me today.
Okay. I'm gonna get that right
They,
after this.
yes, but it is. They are such an amazing brewery because of their like sort of the array of brewing that they're doing, like brewing styles. So they do everything from an amber to an English mild. They do like saisons, they do IPAs, and they nail it. Like everything, nothing is muddled in the flavor. It's beautiful, it's precise from the color to the body to the flavor. I think they are true masters at what they're doing. I don't know who their master brewer is, but a genius, whoever it
What's
is.
the
Yeah.
how long does it take to get there? Like from here? What would you say from Queens or Long Island?
I forget, but it wasn't that long because I know
Okay.
we did like a day trip. We ended up going like apple picking with Sophie and Phil, and then we went out to eat, and then we ended up at the brewery, which by the way, there's like a little lake in the or a little like pond in the back. They have
Okay.
little bonfires. It's a beautiful
Okay.
space.
Because it's my
Um,
birthday coming up in a couple weeks, and we always go brewery hopping every year. So I'm looking for new places. So that might be one to go to.
I think you'll have a really good time up there. And plus,
Okay.
there's so much happening in Warwick right now. It's just like a really fun town. So when's your birthday?
November 4th. So it's a
Mine's November 3rd.
oh, get out of here.
We're going brewery
Scorpio.
hopping together.
Let's do it. I'm ready. Yeah. Oh, so that's why we've done it for the past few years, at least since after COVID. We've gone
Love it.
brewery hopping. Last year we went all the way to the east end of Long Island and
Okay.
did God, I wish I could remember the names, but Great South Bay and we
Okay.
did
Okay. Yeah.
27A,
Okay.
and Spider Bite. We did all those breweries, me, my wife,
Nice.
and my best friend, his wife. And so he's already texted me saying, "All right, what are we doing this year?" So Warwick sounds like a great idea. I would love to do something like
It's
that. Okay.
it would be really I highly recommend it. Anybody I talk to and they're like, "Oh, yeah, tell me about a brewery that you're into." I'm like, Drownlands. Drownlands. Got to go to Drownlands. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's
Just beautiful. Yeah.
wow, that's amazing. So, yeah, it's funny because you mentioned Finback, but I feel like Queens doesn't have outside of Long Island City, which I don't consider
Hmm.
Queens. I still consider it like Manhattan almost.
Yeah.
But outside of like this, I feel like there's not enough breweries in Queens where you go into Brooklyn. I mean, you get swamped with breweries. Me and
True.
Nicole went to brewery hopping a couple weeks ago, and we had five breweries within like a mile radius of each other.
Yeah. No, I believe it.
Yeah, here in Queens, it seems like a little bit of a struggle to find a good brewery.
I agree. I feel like there's definitely more brewing happening in Brooklyn, like
Yeah.
downtown Brooklyn, by the Gowanus, Williamsburg, like,
Hmm.
that's where like Talea started.
Right.
And I agree. I loved when I first found out about Finback, I'm like, Glendale? I'm like,
Right.
shut up, and I'm like, that's the closest brewery to us. And I loved having that near us. We do
Yes.
have like Rockaway Brewery in the Rockaways. Bridge and Tunnel is like one of my
Yeah.
favorites.
Yes,
They're
and it's right
great.
near Evil Twin. So you got that and
Yes.
Evil Twin,
Yes.
and then
They're
Queens
building,
Brewery.
yeah, it seems like in that area they're trying to get a few things going. There's also a few others. There's like Queens Brewery, but they're not big on like distribution. They kind of just they're more on like their space. So like they hold a lot of events at their
They do,
space,
and that's where I get
right?
disappointed with them. Nothing against them, but we went in there and they had like two beers on tap. It's like, well, you're a
Hmm.
brewery. You should have, at least 10. Like give me something.
Yeah.
So that's what disappointed me about them.
Um, did you see like other like were they offering other breweries beers there?
No,
No?
this was a while ago. This was like a couple
Okay.
years ago. So we
Okay.
usually do that radius of Evil Twin, Bridge and Tunnel, and Queens. And you're
Nice.
right, the space there is incredible. Like you
Yeah.
said, they hold, they hold wrestling events and they hold all these, music shows and stuff like that. But we went there to get a beer and we're just like, oh, we got this and this, and that's it. So it was just a little disappointing.
I
Uh, but
agree.
but
I
you're right,
agree.
Bridge and Tunnel is another underrated one as far as brewery.
Underrated,
Yeah.
underrated. And I think it's because, just my opinion, but like the owners, Rich and Lisa, they're humble, family oriented people.
Hmm.
They have beautiful daughters that are fully invested in what they do. I love scrolling through their Instagram and like, Rich has pictures of his daughters like sitting on the malt bags and like
Right. Yes.
it's just the cutest thing. I feel like Rich and Lisa maybe they weren't into like hype and fame and they were like we just want to kind of brew beer and do what we love and it seems like Rich really just wants to be 100% like hands on with it from
Yeah.
buying, selling, brewing. I mean, he built his own like tanks and like the whole operation. I have a lot of respect for them. I remember when I met them, it almost reminded like, so when I opened the business, my husband and I opened it together.
Hmm.
He was often there with me and down the line we realized that this kind of business is just very seasonal so he did decide to kind of get another job and I'm able to handle this just with my staff and myself so when I met Rich and Lisa at that time I'm like oh it's like the brewery version of us Phil.
You're right, right, right. And I love that. I mean, especially during the nighttime in the fall, it is so cozy in there.
Oh
With Bridge and
cute.
Tunnel. Yeah, I love it there. So it's and it got me through
Nice.
COVID because they would deliver beer to my house almost on a weekly
Nice.
basis. And so
Nice.
they were great with that. So which is great.
They're really
Okay,
wonderful people. No.
yeah, they are. They are. I met Rich on a couple of occasions. He's great. All right, let's get to it. Your five beers. We want to do our five fall beers. Is that what we're calling it? Five
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
we'll call it fall beers.
Uh,
So the first one we went through, I mentioned the threes hereafter, just Marson style classic Oktoberfest done beautifully. The next one I have, this is one of those like German beers that has wowed me from the very beginning. It's Eyinger's Oktoberfest.
oh wow, okay.
And just such a beauty. Like it does have a little bit more, and you'll see it's very close to the color, but just a little bit richer in the amber
Oh
tone.
yeah, okay.
And it tastes quite similar to the hereafter. But I love it because again, it's traditional. I have a lot of respect for traditional recipes, and it's like a beer in history.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I have there's a couple of different fall beers that I like. There's one that and simple, but Montauk puts out a great pumpkin ale.
Yeah.
Montauk Brewing. It's got that
Yeah.
pumpkin pie, little flavor to it, little cinnamon.
Yeah.
The other one, which is and we talked about before, it's a little different, is Blue Point puts out that Mother Pumpkin Ale,
Yeah, it sells
which
very well for us. Both of those, the Montauk and the Blue Point.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Mother Pumpkin's much different though, I find, because I forget what percentage is, but I think it's a little higher than the Montauk. And it doesn't have that pumpkin pie flavor. It's got that pumpkin and spice and almost clove flavor to it.
Okay.
It's interesting and it's got much more bite than the Montauk one, but it's not the pastry type beer that sometimes you get with a pumpkin beer.
I just touching on like that pastry. I love that you use that word because the one of the pumpkin beers I have, it's that for me. It is a slice of pie. It's creamy. It has the butteriness of like what would be the pie crust. It almost like I can almost even like taste like the dollop of like whip on it. Like it's just
Interesting.
it's just so
So
good. And the spices, everything. It literally tastes like a liquefied piece of pumpkin pie.
and which one's that? So this is number three for you. So let's take a look.
Whole hog.
Okay, I've
There,
never seen
it's
that
just
one
amazing.
before. Oh,
It's just amazing. They are, I believe, are from Wisconsin. Yeah, Stevens Point. So just what we described. Like, I think it's not heavy on nutmeg, it's not heavy on clove. It's this beautiful balance of pumpkin spices, pumpkin pie spices, and you do get this like creamy pumpkin pureed kind of flavor
See,
to
I
it.
would like that. Yeah.
You would love it. You would love it.
Yeah.
And I think the alcohol is also a touch bit higher, about 7% on the ABV.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
See, right now I'm
delicious.
drinking this the Sam Adams Oktoberfest, and I've had their Oktoberfest before. This one tastes a little sweeter, a little different than I'm used to. I think they
Okay.
changed the recipe on this. It says,
I was curious to see your reaction on that. Yeah, because
yeah,
I
it's
feel like Sam
okay.
Adams drinkers, they love what they, when they like the way it is. And sometimes
Yeah,
that change in the recipe isn't needed, right?
yeah, I don't think it is. It says hearty and smooth. Maybe it's a different type of Oktoberfest. Maybe. It's
Okay.
okay, but it's not bad.
Okay.
But not one I would get again. So,
Got
but
it.
there was
Got
there was one. This is my number three.
it.
I had again from your store was Kings County had Zoktoberfest,
I had
which
that one
was
yet like 2 days
uh
ago.
oh, it was really good.
Yeah.
Really like it's got like almost like a bready biscuity type flavor to
Hmm.
it. Um, that one really surprised me. Sometimes Oktoberfest is hit or miss with me,
Okay.
but that one I liked a lot. What did you like about Oktoberfest?
So I liked that it was very hearty. And
Yes,
it wasn't like as light as like the hereafter. Like there was a lot more body to it. But again, I also like that they didn't like overhop it, which I
right.
will say KCBC, great brewery by the way. They're keen on their hops. They tend to, even their pilsners have a little like kind of a dry hop kind of tone
Hmm.
to it. So I admired it for kind of sticking to the tradition there, but really a well done beer. I
Yeah,
agree. I
yeah.
agree. Yeah.
All right. So what's your number four? What we got number four there?
So at number four was the brewery I
Oh, the
mentioned to you
Drownlands.
earlier. Yes. So Scythe is the name of the beer. And what I love about this one, it's a pumpkin ale that they age in foeders, or it's foeder fermented, I believe. Yeah, foeder fermented.
Okay.
So a foeder is pretty much just like a large wood like vat that you can like ferment your beer in,
Okay.
and what it does is it brings a little bit of that woody nuttiness, a little bit of like an acidity. So I thought that was such an elevated tone to a pumpkin ale.
And much
So
different
it
than a
had,
pumpkin pie type, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, it was like, and they're using your clove, cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger. But it's just, I think that that tone of the food, or that like the food or flavor is blended in there. It just kind of it brings it to a different level. And again, I like to admire something that's different and out of the box. So that's a fun one for me. Yeah.
Okay. So the my fourth one was again from your store. Was a tripping Goliath.
Oh, toppling Goliath, I
Topping
think,
Goliath
right?
with the
Yeah. Mhm.
Fandango caramel. Oh my
The
god.
caramel apple.
Oh my god. Me and my wife looked at each other like we both tasted it and we went, "Oh my god, this is amazing." Like
Awesome.
it's got that green apple flavor with the
Yeah.
caramel. Like it literally tastes like a liquefied caramel apple. It was I would they call it a sour, right? They had it as a
I
sour,
believe it's like a sour. Yeah, when the category of like what kind of beer it is a
but it
sour.
tastes
Yeah,
it tastes like a cider to me, but it was
yeah,
so good. It
because
was
it's
like
sweet. Right, right.
very
Yeah,
sweet. Yeah, if you're not into the
very
sweet,
sweet.
it's probably not for you, but my God, like that was something like, oh my, it was like the caramel really punched you in the mouth when I first got into it. I'm like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. Like I could keep this away from the kids because if they smell this,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
they're gonna
yeah.
want to taste this.
Again, like I love that. That's such a fun brewery. Toppling Goliath is there's really so talented over there.
They're in Iowa,
More
right?
they're in Iowa and Decorah, I believe, Decorah, Iowa.
Okay,
And they're known for King Sue and Pseudo Sue. Pseudo Sue's a pale ale, and King Sue is like I think a double IPA. But
okay,
they make just a wonderful variety of beers. I think they've also taken home plenty of awards and things like that. But just fantastic brewing. Just like I will sometimes bring in like a fun sour or something different from them. But I agree. Just I love the funky flavors and when it delivers and when it's like brewed well. Yeah.
right, yeah, yeah. That one really stood out for me. That was the first time I ever had them, I think.
Okay.
But I'd love to try their other stuff because that one was
Yeah.
just out of this world.
Nice.
What's your number five there? What we got?
Okay. Number five is a cider, and
Okay.
it is a cider donut inspired cider. And I love these guys. Citizen Cider is probably my favorite cidery. They're out of Vermont. They were at the event. I don't know if you got to
Yes.
speak
Oh
to
yeah, I
George.
remember. Yep.
Yeah. He's wonderful, by the way, but they have great representation. They have just a stunning collection of cider. Um, who doesn't love a cider donut? And if you don't, get away from me.
Right. I agree.
so so I love that. It's this is like this would be like my end of the night, like dessert kind of thing, you know.
Okay.
It is sweet, but what I love about Citizen Cider is that they don't make anything like, nothing is like off-putting or too much. Everything has some kind of a balance to it. So even if it's meant to be sweet, it's not like toothache kind of sweet, you
Right.
know. I love that it has like the cinnamon tones, that like cinnamon brown sugar kind of vibe in
Yeah.
there. And then it's a cider, so you get that nice kind of crisp apple bite in between
Oh,
all
that's
that
amazing.
flavor. It's
Yeah.
it's such a wonderful seasonal option. Yeah,
I gotta try that. I love those beers, those ciders, but sometimes you only have one of them because they're so filling sometimes.
I
So,
agree.
like you said, sometimes you go to your lagers, you could have, three or
Right.
four of them without, feeling anything. But something like that can weigh heavy. But boy, that's cider donuts, man. I'm with you, Sadaf. Those anything
They're
with cider
so
donuts, I'm in.
I'm in,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Apple pie, like any apple
Yes.
desserts, and it's like my weakness.
I agree. I agree. Now, we talked about this before with Evil Twin. They had a similar one with an apple cider donut, and you could actually taste the powdered sugar on it. Can you
Yeah.
get that kind of flavor with the cider too as well? Or
I'm going to pop it open so I can
okay.
give you a more
All
accurate
right, good.
response. So, yeah, I love it. I know what beer you're talking about, and that beer, they did it last year.
It
So
was a
Evil
long
Twin,
name. It was a long, long name with it. I forget
it
what it
was
was.
like, yeah, I mean, which they have
They're
like novels for names,
right.
which is amusing.
Yeah.
It's nice, it's fun, it kind of makes it fun. But I I forget the name, but I remember I brought that to like we were having like sort of a neighbor barbecue, and one of my neighbors like went in the beer fridge, he opened this up, and it just like stopped the room. Like he was like, "What am I drinking?"
Yeah.
And what I loved was that it was also not like super carbonated, right? It,
Right.
it was kind of still, so you got this like fresh pressed apple cider
Hmm.
kind of. It was amazing. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
What they do with their beers, and sometimes it can be a little overpowering sometimes because you get so much marshmallow, so much
Yeah.
fruitiness, or like you can only have one or two and like, all right, let's move on to something that I can just drink,
I
but
agree,
they're
and that's
so
why
delicious though.
it 100%, 100%. And that's why, I noticed that again, I'm lucky that I own a beer shop that like, for market research reasons, we open up all this beer to try. But I've noticed that like I enjoy trying it with my staff. Oftentimes if I crack something open and a customer is there, I'm like, "Oh, you want to try something?" And everyone's palate is different. So you're going to get a different reaction, which it's great. It's just builds a conversation. But it's sometimes it can be too much for some, like one thing can be too much for somebody and somebody else may really enjoy that. Within
Right.
my staff of like 6 people, like it's it's amazing to see when we sit down to do a staff tasting that everybody has a little bit of a different reaction, or they'll pick up a different kind of flavor in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree, those experimental things, I love to try them. Like I'll take one 16-ounce can and we'll try it amongst everybody. I often cannot like do even the whole can.
Yeah, if I do the whole can, I'm done. Like it's
I'm
just
done.
it's so filling. And you're right
Agreed.
about the different as far as like palates, because it's about my best friend who's taken me out to all these breweries, and he got me into a lot of this stuff too as well. But he is a dark beer fan, stout, porter, and I'm the light beer, sour type guy. And we look at each other
Yeah.
like, what the hell are you thinking? What are you drinking? Like, I don't taste the blueberry. I don't taste the marshmallow. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I don't taste the chocolate. So it's just like we
Yeah.
go back and forth. We're so opposites, but I've learned to, like the porters and stouts, not that much, but it's the coffee base that gets to me. And I'm not a big coffee drinker. So
Got
that's
it.
why I go to more towards the chocolate based stouts.
Got it. Yeah.
Is there one out there? I Before I ask you that question, there is one I love, which is my
Okay.
number five, and
Yep.
that's Omnigang's All Hallows. They're the chocolate peanut butter stout, which I
Oh, that's a good
oh my
one.
god, it was
Isn't
I,
it like a liquefied Reese's peanut butter
thank
cup?
you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And finally
You're welcome.
it was one beer that me and my best friend finally agreed on.
I
So it
love
was
it.
like he's like, yeah, you're right. This tastes like a peanut
Yeah.
butter cup,
It
and
is.
that one absolutely love.
I agree. It was such a hit. I remember when we got it last year, people were like talking about it, and we tried it at a staff tasting too. And again, within our staff, like there's many people that are like, no, I'm not into stouts. I'm like, try. You just have. I'm like, sometimes I'm just like, it's part of the job. You have to try it.
Right, right. Yeah.
But it's like they're pleasantly surprised. Such a cool beer. Agreed. No coffee tones, no bitter tones.
No,
It
none.
wasn't even like like aggressive in the sugar tone,
No,
in the
it was
in the sugar
not
factor. It
overly
was
sweet. Yeah.
it was just like that kind of creamy milk chocolate, right? Like
I
it was
know,
just such a cool beer.
you had it in the growler last year, which
Yes.
I got it twice. So that's how much
Wow.
we loved it. I bought one over for Thanksgiving one time to my friend, and he loved
I
it.
love it.
And what I like about it too, it's not usually the stouts are very high, as far as like it's above 10%, and
Right.
this one I think is like at 7.5, and
Yeah, it was pretty
it's
mild. Yeah.
yeah, it's not harsh at all. It's just like you said, it's a liquefied peanut butter cup. It's crazy. So I do love that beer.
So I do have a recommendation, another winner and another one that has sort of proved itself within our staff tastings and as I've introduced it to people, or people that were like, no, I'm not really into stouts, but I kind of want to try something that's not bitter and doesn't have coffee. So this one is one of my favorite ones to recommend. It is by Mast Landing. It's called Gunner's Daughter,
Okay.
and it is a milk stout. So in milk stouts, they're not really using lactose in it. So a lot of people get confused when they see that, but it's more that it's just like a smoother, kind of silkier stout.
Okay.
So, and in this one, they don't use or say anything about peanut butter, but it has this like nutty, they must have like toasted the malt to a point that it brought out this like peanut butter like flavor, this like nutty like flavor. So when people drink it, it's silky, it's like 5.5%. It's like
Oh wow,
really, really
that's light
easy.
for yeah, it's light.
Really, it's chocolatey. It's not too like it's not too dense in the body,
Right.
um but it's creamy. It is such a winner that I remember, like, I think I pulled it out twice or just different staff tastings, and everybody loved it, including those that don't like stouts, and they're like, wow, this is really cool. I'm like, this is one of those beers that you do want to introduce to somebody, like in the way that you asked me, what's
Right.
something that if you're not a stout lover and you're not into coffee, what would you want to get into? And that one I do try to keep stocked at the store at all times. Yeah,
Okay. Excellent. I definitely have to try that.
it's a good
So yeah,
one.
that's Sadaf's top five beers of the fall. So
Yes.
I did my top five. What's your top five beers of the fall? Give us a comment, review down below. Sadaf, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
This was really fun. Thank you so much for having me. This is
We
super
got
fun.
we got to have you back on. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Definitely.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.